The rain came down in sheets, hammering the roof of the old bus as it rattled along the winding Oregon road. Ezra Kane clutched the worn leather journal in his lap, its pages filled with named strangers who'd found refuge in the sanctuary he'd built from nothing but grit and a stubborn heart. He was 28, openly gay, and had spent the last 5 years turning a crumbling farmhouse into a haven for those society had cast aside. The driver's voice crackled over the intercom, announcing the stop. Ezra's heart lurched. He hadn't seen his twin brother, Caleb, in nearly a decade, not since their father's funeral, when Caleb's cold silence had cut deeper than any words could. Now, Caleb was coming to him, broken and begging for help. The thought twisted in Ezra's gut like a knife. Why now? What had shattered the golden boy who'd always had everything: money, charm, a perfect life? Ezra stepped off the bus into the drizzle, his boots sinking into the mud. The sanctuary loomed ahead, a patchwork of weathered wood and glowing windows, alive with the laughter of its residents. This was his world, built for outcasts like him, queer kids, runaways, anyone who'd been told they didn't belong. He'd poured his soul into it, every nail, and bored a defiance of the world that had once rejected him. But Caleb was the straight twin, the one who'd fit in, who'd never had to fight for a place. And yet, here he was, about to walk back into Ezra's life. The crunch of gravel snapped Ezra's thoughts. A figure emerged from the mist, shoulders hunched, a duffel bag slung over one arm. Caleb. His once sharp features were gaunt, his eyes hollow. He looked like a man who'd lost everything. Ezra's instinct was to run to him, to bridge the years with a hug. But the memory of Caleb's last words stopped him cold. "You're not my brother anymore." Those words had haunted Ezra, fueling his resolve to create a place where no one would ever feel that kind of rejection again. "Caleb," Ezra said, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. "You found me." Caleb's lips trembled, but he didn't speak. He just stood there, soaked and shivering, his pride stripped away. Ezra's heart ached, torn between the brother he'd loved and the stranger who'd turned his back. He gestured toward the house. "Come inside. You're safe here." The sanctuary's common room was warm, filled with mismatched furniture and the scent of fresh bread. A dozen residents' teens, young adults, a few older lounged or helped with dinner prep. They glanced at Caleb with curiosity, but no judgment. This was the rule of the sanctuary. Everyone was welcome. No questions asked. Ezra had made it that way after years of being the one who had to justify his existence. "Ezra, who's this?" asked Riley, a non-binary teen with a shock of blue hair. They were one of the first to arrive at the sanctuary, a runaway who'd found safety here after their family kicked them out. "My brother," Ezra said, the words heavy. "Caleb's staying for a while." Riley nodded, their eyes flicking to Caleb's disheveled state. "Cool. Dinner's almost ready. You eat meat." Caleb blinked, caught off guard. Yeah. Thanks." Ezra led Caleb to a small bedroom upstairs, its walls adorned with drawings from residents. "This is yours for now," he said. "We don't have much, but it's warm and dry." Caleb dropped his bag, his voice barely a whisper. "I didn't know where else to go." Ezra wanted to ask what happened, Why me? But the exhaustion in Caleb's eyes held him back. Instead, he said, "Rest. We'll talk tomorrow." That night, Ezra couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, watching the rain, his mind racing. Caleb had been the favored son, the one who'd followed their father's path: college, finance job, a fiancé. Ezra had been the black sheep, disowned at 18 for coming out. He'd clawed his way through, building this sanctuary with donations and sheer will. It was more than a house site was a statement. A middle finger to everyone who'd ever told him he was less than. But Caleb's arrival threatened to unravel it all. What did he want? Forgiveness. A place to hide. Ezra didn't know if he could give either. Morning broke with a fragile calm. The sanctuary buzzed with its usual rhythm: chores, laughter, the clatter of breakfast dishes. Caleb emerged, looking slightly less like a ghost. He sat at the communal table, picking at his food, his eyes darting to the residents. Ezra watched him, searching for the brother he'd once known. They'd been inseparable as kids, sharing secrets under the stars, dreaming of futures that seemed limitless. But that was before Caleb chose their father's approval over Ezra. "You built all this?" Caleb asked, breaking the silence. Ezra nodded. "Took 5 years. Started with just me and a hammer." "It's incredible." Caleb's voice cracked, like he was holding back a flood. "I didn't know you had it in you." Ezra's jaw tightened. "You didn't stick around to find out." Caleb flinched, and for a moment, Ezra regretted the jab. But the hurt was still raw, a wound that hadn't healed. He stood, brushing off his hands. "I've got work to do. You can help if you want." Caleb followed, hesitant, as Ezra led him to the garden. They worked in silence, pulling weeds, the air thick with unspoken words. The other residents moved around them, a living testament to Ezra's mission. There was Maya, a trans girl who'd arrived last year, now thriving as the sanctuary's unofficial baker. And Leo, a quiet gay teen who'd found his voice here. They were Ezra's family now, bound not by blood but by shared survival. As the day wore on, Caleb's stiffness eased. He laughed when Riley teased him about his city boy boots, and he listened when Maya shyly offered him a scone. Ezra watched, torn between hope and suspicion. Was this the real Caleb, or just a man desperate for a roof? That evening, as the residents gathered for a bonfire, Caleb finally spoke. "I lost everything. Ezra. My job. My fiancé. My apartment. I messed up." His voice broke, and he looked away, ashamed. "I didn't know where else to turn." Ezra's chest tightened. He wanted to believe Caleb, to let the past go. But trust was a fragile thing, and Caleb had broken it once before. Still, the sanctuary's creed echoed in his mind: everyone deserves a chance. Even Caleb. "Stay as long as you need," Ezra said finally. "But you follow our rules. No judgment. No lies." Caleb nodded, tears in his eyes. "Thank you." As the fire crackled, Ezra felt the weight of his own words. He'd built this place for outcasts, but could he open it to the one person who'd made him feel like one? Only time would tell. The days bled into weeks, and Caleb settled into the sanctuary's rhythm, though he moved like a shadow, unsure of his place. Ezra watched him closely, noting every small gesture, a hesitant smile when Riley offered him a second helping, the way he lingered at the edges of conversations, listening to stories of pain and resilience. Caleb was trying, but Ezra couldn't shake the feeling that his brother was holding something back. The sanctuary was a living thing, its pulse driven by the people within it. Morning started with coffee and chaos, residents spilling into the kitchen to argue over who burned the toast. Ezra loved the noise, the mess, the proof that this place was alive. He'd built it on the principle that no one should feel alone, drawing from his own years of isolation after coming out. Back then, he'd had no one. Now, he had this. Caleb, though, was a puzzle. He helped with chores, chopping wood, fixing leaks, but he kept his distance, his answers vague when anyone asked about his past. Ezra wanted to press, to demand the truth, but he held back. The sanctuary's rule was clear: no one had to share their story until they were ready. Even Caleb. One afternoon, Ezra found Caleb in the barn, sanding down a chair for the common room. The air smelled of sawdust and possibility. "You're good at that," Ezra said, leaning against the doorframe. Caleb paused, wiping sweat from his brow. "Dad taught me. Remember how he'd make us build stuff in the garage?" Ezra's throat tightened. He remembered hours spent with their father, the only times he'd felt like he belonged. But those memories were tainted now, overshadowed by the day their father had called Ezra a disgrace. Caleb had been there, silent, letting it happen. "Yeah," Ezra said curtly. "I remember." Caleb's hands stilled. "I'm sorry, Ezra, for everything." The apology hung in the air, heavy and incomplete. Ezra wanted to believe it, but words weren't enough. "Not yet. Keep sanding," he said, turning away. "We need that chair by dinner." The sanctuary wasn't just a home. It was a lifeline. Ezra had scraped together grants and donations to keep it running, but money was tight. He spent evenings poring over budgets, calculating how to stretch every dollar. The residents helped where they could. Some worked odd jobs in town. Others sold crafts online, but it was never enough. Ezra didn't mind the struggle. It was worth it to see Maya's confidence grow or hear Leo laugh without fear. But Caleb's presence added a new weight. What if he was just passing through, using this place as a pit stop? One night, as Ezra balanced the books, Riley burst into his room, their face pale. "There's a guy outside. Says he's looking for Caleb." Ezra's stomach dropped. He followed Riley to the porch, where a man in a leather jacket stood under the floodlight, his expression hard. "I need to see Caleb Kane," the man said, his voice clipped. "He's here," Ezra said cautiously. "Who are you?" "Name's Derek. I'm a friend." The way he said it, sharp and evasive, set Ezra's nerves on edge. Caleb appeared behind Ezra, his face draining of color. "Derek," he whispered. "What are you doing here?" "You owe me, Kane," Derek snapped. "You don't get to just disappear." Ezra stepped between them, his protective instincts flaring. "Whatever this is, you take it somewhere else. This is a safe place." Derek's eyes narrowed, but he backed off, tossing a crumpled note at Caleb. You know where to find me. He stalked into the night, leaving a chill in his wake. Ezra turned to Caleb, his voice low. Who was that? And what does he mean? You owe him. Caleb's hands shook as he unfolded the note, his eyes scanning it before he shoved it into his pocket. It's nothing. Just old business. Old business doesn't show up at midnight looking like it wants to break your legs. Ezra said. Talk to me. Caleb. Now. Caleb hesitated, then sighed. I got in deep with some people in Seattle. Bad investments. Worse decisions. I lost everything me job. My savings. I ran because I couldn't pay them back. Ezra's chest tightened. And you brought that here. To my home. I didn't know he'd find me. Caleb said, his voice breaking. I swear. Ezra. I just needed a place to hide. Ezra wanted to scream, to throw Caleb out. But the sanctuary's creed stopped him. No one was turned away. Not even his brother, who dragged trouble to their doorstep. You're staying, Ezra said finally. But you tell me everything. No more secrets. Caleb nodded, his shoulders sagging. I will. I promise. As Ezra walked back inside, his mind raced. He'd built this place to protect people, but now he had to protect it from Caleb's past. The sanctuary was his heart, and he'd be damned if he let anyone brother or not tear it down. The sanctuary woke to a crisp morning, the kind where the air smelled of pine and possibility. But Ezra felt none of it. Caleb's revelation hung over him like a storm cloud, threatening everything he'd built. He watched his brother from the kitchen window, helping Leo stack firewood, his movements stiff but earnest. Caleb was trying to fit in, but the shadow of Derek's visit loomed large. Ezra called a meeting with the residents, something he rarely did. They gathered in the common room, sprawled on couches and floor cushions, their faces a mix of curiosity and concern. We've got a situation, Ezra began, his voice steady. Someone from Caleb's past showed up last night. It might bring trouble. Maya frowned, twisting a braid around her finger. What kind of trouble? Money stuff, Ezra said, keeping it vague. I'm handling it, but I need you all to keep an eye out. No strangers on the property without me knowing. Riley crossed their arms. This about your brother. He's been cagey since he got here. Ezra glanced at Caleb, who stood in the doorway, his face flushed with shame. He's family, Ezra said. And he's one of us now. We protect our own. The words felt heavy, a commitment Ezra wasn't sure he could keep. But the residents nodded, their trust in him unshaken. They were a family, forged in hardship, and Ezra would do anything to keep them safe. Later, he cornered Caleb in the garden. You said you'd tell me everything. So talk. Caleb sank onto a bench, his hands clasped tightly. I was working for a hedge fund in Seattle. Big money. High stakes. I got cocky. Made some bad calls. Then I borrowed from the wrong people, guys like Derek. When it all crashed, I lost my job. My fiancée left. And I had nothing. I ran. Ezra's jaw clenched. How much do you owe? 50 grand. Caleb muttered. Maybe more with interest. Ezra exhaled sharply. The sanctuary's budget was barely enough to keep the lights on, let alone cover a debt like that. And you thought you could just hide here? I didn't know what else to do, Caleb said, his voice raw. You were the only person I could think of. The only one who might care. The words hit Ezra like a punch. He wanted to hate Caleb, to hold on to the anger from all those years ago. But the desperation in his brother's eyes was too real. You're not running anymore, Ezra said. We'll figure this out. Together. The next few days were tense. Ezra doubled down on security, installing cheap motion sensors around the property and asking the residents to travel in pairs when they went into town. He hated the paranoia, the way it tainted the sanctuary's open spirit. But he had no choice. Derek's visit had been a warning, and Ezra wasn't naive enough to think it was the last. Caleb threw himself into work, as if he could outrun his guilt. He fixed fences, cooked dinners, even started teaching Leo how to carve wood. Ezra watched, torn between pride and suspicion. Caleb was building something here. But was it real? Or just a way to ease his conscience? One evening, as the residents painted a mural on the barn, Ezra overheard Caleb talking to Maya. I didn't get it before, Caleb said, his voice soft. What this place means. You're all stronger than I ever was. Maya smiled, handing him a paintbrush. You're here now? That's what counts. Ezra's heart softened. Just a fraction. Maybe Caleb was changing. Maybe the sanctuary was working its magic on him, the way it had on so many others. But then the phone rang, a burner number Ezra didn't recognize. He answered, his pulse spiking. Caleb's got 1 week. Derek's voice growled. 50 grand. Or we come for him. And that little hippie commune of yours won't stop us. The line went dead. Ezra stood frozen, the phone still in his hand. He'd built the sanctuary to be a refuge, but now it was a target. And Caleb, the brother he'd vowed to protect, was the reason. He found Caleb in the barn, sanding another chair. We need to talk, Ezra said, his voice tight. Derek called. 1 week. Caleb. What the hell are we supposed to do? Caleb's face crumpled. I'll leave. I won't let them hurt this place. No. Ezra snapped. You don't get to run again. This is my home. And you're in it. We face this together. Caleb's eyes glistened. But he nodded. For the first time, Ezra saw a spark of the brother he'd lost, the one who'd once promised to always have his back. But promises were fragile, and time was running out. Ezra barely slept, his mind churning with plans and worst-case scenarios. The sanctuary was his life's work, a beacon for those who'd been broken by the world. Now, it was at risk because of Caleb's mistakes. He wanted to trust his brother, to believe they could face this together, but doubt not at him. Could Caleb, who'd once chosen their father's approval over him, really stand by the sanctuary now? Morning brought a flurry of activity. Ezra rallied the residents, assigning tasks to fortify the property, reinforcing locks, checking the perimeter, even setting up a makeshift alarm system with old bells and wire. The air was thick with tension, but the residents worked without complaint. They trusted Ezra, and that trust was a weight he carried with pride and fear. Caleb threw himself into the effort, his hands steady as he nailed boards over vulnerable windows. Ezra watched him, searching for signs of the old Caleb, the one who'd walked away without a backward glance. But this Caleb was different, quieter, haunted. He caught Ezra's eye and offered a small nod, as if to say, "I'm here." Later, Ezra called a contact in town, a lawyer named Sarah who'd helped with the sanctuary's legal status. She listened as he explained the situation, her voice calm but firm. "You need to go to the police, Ezra. This Derek sounds dangerous." "I can't," Ezra said. "Caleb's scared, and I don't trust the cops to care about a place like this. We're a bunch of queer misfits to them." Sarah sighed. "Then you need a plan. Can you pay this guy off?" Ezra laughed bitterly. "With what? We're scraping by as it is." "Then stall him," Sarah said. "Buy time. Get evidence. And keep your people safe." Ezra hung up, his mind racing. Stalling Derek meant playing a dangerous game, but it was their only shot. He found Caleb in the kitchen, helping Riley chop vegetables. "We need to talk to Derek," Ezra said. "Set up a meeting, somewhere public. We'll offer what we can and buy time." Caleb's face paled. "He's not the negotiating type, Ezra." "Then we make him," Ezra said. "You owe me that much." Caleb nodded, his jaw tight. "Okay. I'll call him." The meeting was set for a diner in town, a neutral spot where Derek couldn't pull anything without witnesses. Ezra and Caleb drove in silence, the weight of the past and present pressing down on them. The diner was crowded, filled with the hum of conversation and the clink of dishes. Derek was already there, sitting in a corner booth, his eyes cold and calculating. "You brought your brother," Derek said, smirking as they slid into the booth. "Cute. Family reunion." "Cut the crap," Ezra said. "What do you want from Caleb?" 50 grand, Derek said, leaning back. "Plus interest. Let's call it 60 now." "We don't have that kind of money," Ezra said. "But we can work something out. Payments. Maybe." Derek laughed. A sharp, ugly sound. "You think I'm a bank? I want it all. Or Caleb's in trouble. And this little safe house of yours. It won't be safe for long." Ezra's blood ran cold, but he kept his voice steady. "Threaten my home again, and you'll regret it." Derek's smirk faded, replaced by a calculating stare. 1 week, he said, standing. "Give me the money, or I'll take it out of both of you." As Derek left, Caleb's hands shook. "I'm sorry, Ezra. I didn't mean for this to happen." Ezra wanted to yell, to shake Caleb until the truth spilled out. But he saw the fear in his brother's eyes. "We'll figure it out," he said, though he wasn't sure he believed it. Back at the sanctuary, the residents were waiting, their faces tense. Ezra explained the situation, leaving out the worst of Derek's threats. "We're not giving up," he said. "This place is ours, and we'll protect it." Maya stepped forward, her voice soft but firm. "We've got your back, Ezra. All of us." The others nodded, their resolve a quiet fire. Ezra felt a surge of gratitude, but also fear. These were his people, and he'd brought danger to their doorstep. He looked at Caleb, who stood at the edge of the group, his eyes downcast. "You're one of us now," Ezra said. "Act like it." Caleb met his gaze, and for the first time, Ezra saw something like determination there. Maybe, just maybe, his brother was ready to fight for something bigger than himself. The sanctuary felt like a fortress under siege, though the enemy was invisible, lurking just beyond the trees. Ezra spent his days planning, his nights sleepless, haunted by the thought of Derek's men storming the property. He'd built this place to be a refuge, not a battleground. But Caleb's debt had turned it into both. Caleb was different now, more present. He threw himself into every task, from reinforcing the fence to teaching Riley how to use a drill. Ezra watched him, torn between hope and caution. Caleb was trying to prove himself, but trust was a slow-growing thing, and Ezra wasn't ready to let his guard down. One morning, Ezra found a letter slipped under his door, anonymously written, in shaky handwriting. "Caleb's trouble. Get him out before it's too late." His stomach churned. Was it one of the residents? Someone in town? He confronted Caleb, holding up the note. "Explain this," Ezra said, his voice low. Caleb's face paled as he read it. "I don't know who wrote it, Ezra. I swear. Maybe Derek's trying to scare you. Or maybe someone here doesn't trust you," Ezra said. "And I'm starting to wonder if they're right." Caleb's eyes filled with tears. "I'm not that guy anymore. I know I hurt you, but I'm trying to make it right." Ezra wanted to believe him, but the note burned in his hand. He tucked it away, resolving to watch Caleb closer. The sanctuary was his priority, and he wouldn't let anyone, not even his brother, jeopardize it. The residents rallied, their bond tightening in the face of danger. Maya organized a fundraiser in town, selling her baked goods to raise money for the sanctuary's defense. Leo and Riley started a social media campaign, sharing stories of the sanctuary's impact to drum up donations. Ezra was amazed by their resilience, their refusal to let fear win. But the clock was ticking. Derek's deadline was 5 days away. Ezra and Caleb worked late into the night, drafting a plan to stall Derek. They'd offer a partial payment, scraped together from the sanctuary's emergency fund, and promise the rest later. It was a long shot, but it was all they had. As they sat in the dim light of the office, Caleb spoke, his voice quiet. "I never told you why I didn't stand up for you," he said. "When Dad kicked you out." Ezra froze, the old wound reopening. "I don't need to hear it." "You do," Caleb said. "I was scared. Dad was all I had left after Mom died. I thought if I went against him, I'd lose everything. I was wrong, and I've hated myself for it ever since." Ezra's throat tightened. He'd spent years hating Caleb, but hearing the truth softened the edges of his anger. "You could have called," he said. "After." "I know," Caleb whispered. "I was a coward. But I'm here now, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect this place." Ezra didn't respond, but the words sank in. Maybe Caleb was changing. Maybe the sanctuary was changing him. The next day, A stranger arrayed a woman in her 40s, claiming to be a donor. She handed Ezra a check for $10,000. No strings attached. "I heard about your work," she said. "Keep it going." Ezra stared at the check, his heart racing. It wasn't enough to pay Derek off, but it was a start. He thanked her, his voice thick with emotion, and tucked the check away. Later, he overheard Caleb on the phone, his voice low and urgent. "I'll get you the money, Derek. Just give me time." Ezra's blood ran cold. Was Caleb playing him, working with Derek behind his back? He confronted his brother, his voice shaking with rage. "Who were you talking to?" Caleb's eyes widened. "Derek. I was trying to stall him, like we planned." "Were you setting us up?" Ezra snapped. "I heard you." Caleb grabbed Ezra's arm, desperate. "I'm not betraying you. I swear on my life." Ezra pulled away, his heart pounding. He wanted to believe Caleb, but the stakes were too high. The sanctuary was everything, and he couldn't risk it on blind trust. "Prove it," he said, "or you're out." Caleb nodded, his face set with determination. For the first time, Ezra saw a flicker of the brother he'd once known, the one who'd promised to always stand by him. But promises were fragile, and time was running out. The sanctuary hummed with nervous energy, every creak of the floorboards a reminder of the looming deadline. Ezra's trust in Caleb hung by a thread, frayed by years of betrayal and the anonymous note still burning a hole in his pocket. He kept it hidden, but its warning echoed, "Get him out." He wanted to believe Caleb was sincere, but doubt was a stubborn shadow. Caleb worked harder than ever, as if he could outrun his past. He helped Maya with the fundraiser, his charm drawing in customers at the town market. He stayed up late with Leo, teaching him to whittle, their laughter a rare bright spot. Ezra watched, torn between hope and fear. Was this the real Caleb, or a performance to buy time? The residents sensed the tension. Riley cornered Ezra one morning, their eyes sharp. "You're watching Caleb like he's a bomb about to go off. What's going on?" Ezra hesitated, then showed them the note. Riley's face darkened. "Could be anyone. Could be nothing. But you need to talk to him, Ezra. Really talk." Ezra knew they were right, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he focused on the plan. The fundraiser had brought in another $5,000, and with the donor's check, they had $15,000, far from Derek's demand, but enough to negotiate. Ezra and Caleb prepared for another meeting, this time at a park in town, hoping the open space would keep Derek in check. The park was quiet, the afternoon sun casting long shadows. Derek arrived alone, his leather jacket replaced by a crisp shirt, as if he were playing the part of a reasonable man. "You got my money?" he asked, his tone deceptively calm. $15,000, Ezra said, holding up an envelope. "It's what we have. We'll get you the rest, but you need to back off." Derek's eyes flicked to Caleb, who stood silent, his hands clenched. "You think this is a game? I don't take installments." "Then you get nothing," Ezra said, his voice steel. "Take it, or we go to the cops." Derek laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're brave. I'll give you that. But you're out of your depth. He took the envelope, thumbing through the cash. This buys you 2 weeks. Don't test me. As Derek walked away, Ezra felt a hollow victory. They'd bought time, but the threat remained. Caleb's shoulders sagged, relief and guilt warring on his face. Thank you, he whispered. I don't deserve this. No, you don't, Ezra said, but his tone softened. But you're here, and we're in this together. Back at the sanctuary, the residents celebrated the small win. Their hope infectious. Maya baked a cake, and Leo led a toast to kicking trouble's ass. Ezra smiled, but his eyes stayed on Caleb, searching for cracks in his brother's resolve. That night, Ezra found Caleb on the porch, staring at the stars. You used to love this, Caleb said, his voice soft. Stargazing. You'd make up stories about the constellations. Ezra sat beside him, the memories flooding back. You'd laugh at my stories, but you always listened. I miss that, Caleb said. I miss us. Ezra's chest ached. He wanted to bridge the gap, to forgive, but the note's warning lingered. Then tell me the truth, he said. All of it. Why did Derek find you so fast? Caleb's face crumpled. I didn't tell you everything. Derek's not just a lone shark. He's connected. I saw things in Seattle deals. People hurt. I ran because I was scared. But I think he wants me silent. Not just paid. Ezra's blood ran cold. You brought the mob to my door. I didn't know what else to do, Caleb said, tears streaming down his face. I'm so sorry, Ezra. Ezra stood, his hands shaking. He wanted to scream, to throw Caleb out. But the sanctuary's creed stopped him. No one was turned away, not even a brother who'd endangered everything. We'll deal with this, he said finally. But no more lies. Caleb nodded, his voice breaking. I swear. As Ezra walked inside, his heart pounded. The sanctuary was his soul, and Caleb's truth had just raised the stakes. They weren't just fighting for money, now they were fighting for survival. The sanctuary felt like a held breath, every moment taut with the threat of Derek's return. Ezra's mind spun with Caleb's confession his brother hadn't just borrowed money. He'd tangled with people who didn't forgive. The weight of it threatened to crush him. But Ezra clung to the sanctuary's mission, protect, no matter the cost. He called Sarah again, laying out the new details. Her voice was grim. If Derek's tied to organized crime, you're in over your head. You need protection, FBI. Maybe. But you'll need evidence. Ezra glanced at Caleb, who was helping Riley repair a gate. Caleb's the evidence. He saw things in Seattle. Then get him to talk, Sarah said. Record it. Document it. And stay safe. Ezra hung up, his resolve hardening. He approached Caleb, who looked up, wary. We need to record everything you know about Derek, Ezra said. Names, deals, anything. It's our only leverage. Caleb's face paled, but he nodded. Okay. But if I do this, they'll come for me. They're already coming, Ezra said. This way? We have a chance. They spent the night in Ezra's office. Caleb recounting every detail, shady deals. Names of men in suits. A warehouse in Seattle where money changed hands. Ezra recorded it all, his heart pounding. This wasn't just about saving Caleb anymore. It was about saving the sanctuary. The residents kept the place running, their trust in Ezra unwavering. Maya organized a second fundraiser, this time online, and donations trickled in. Leo and Riley patrolled the property, their makeshift alarms jangling in the wind. Ezra felt a surge of pride. These were his people, fighting for their home. But the anonymous note still haunted him. He showed it to Maya, who frowned. Could be someone in town. People talk. They don't always like what you've built here. Ezra nodded, but the doubt lingered. Was there a traitor among them? He watched the residents closely, hating himself for it. They were his family, but Caleb's presence had sown seeds of mistrust. 2 days before Derek's deadline, a car pulled UPA black SUV, tinted windows. Ezra's heart raced as he signaled the residents to stay inside. Derek stepped out, alone, his smile cold. Time's almost up, he said. Where's my money? We're working on it, Ezra said, his voice steady. You'll get it. Derek's eyes flicked to Caleb, who stood behind Ezra. You're a liability, Kane. You know too much. Ezra stepped forward, his fists clenched. You touch him, you deal with me. And I've got a lot more to lose than you think. Derek's smile widened, but he backed off. 2 days, he said, climbing into the SUV. Don't disappoint me. As the car sped away, Ezra turned to Caleb. You're telling the truth, right? Everything. Caleb met his gaze, his eyes clear. Everything. I swear. Ezra nodded, but the weight of the note lingered. That night, he found Riley in the barn, alone, holding a phone. Who are you calling? Ezra asked, his voice sharp. Riley jumped, shoving the phone in their pocket. Just a friend. Ezra's gut twisted. Was Riley the traitor? He hated the thought, but he couldn't ignore it. No secrets, he said. Not now. Riley nodded, their eyes wide. I'm with you, Ezra. Always. Ezra walked away, his heart heavy. The sanctuary was his dream, but it was cracking under the strain. He needed Caleb to be honest, the residents to be loyal, and himself to be strong enough to hold it all together. 2 days left, and everything was on the line. The final day dawned gray and heavy, the air thick with the promise of rain. Ezra stood on the porch, watching the horizon, his heart a tangle of fear and resolve. The sanctuary was his soul, built for outcasts like him, and he'd fight to his last breath to protect it. Caleb stood beside him, silent, his face etched with guilt and determination. The residents gathered in the common room, their faces a mix of defiance and fear. Ezra had told them everything: Derek's threats, Caleb's past, the recorded evidence they'd sent to Sarah. She was working to get it to the FBI, but it would take time, and time was something they didn't have. We're family, Ezra said, his voice steady. No matter what happens today, we face it together. Maya squeezed his hand, her eyes fierce. "We've got you, Ezra." Riley nodded, their usual bravado softened by something deeper. "No one's taking this place from us." Caleb stepped forward, his voice trembling. "This is my fault. If they come, I'll go with them. I won't let you all pay for my mistakes." Ezra's chest tightened. He wanted to hate Caleb, to hold on to the pain of their past. But he saw the brother he'd once loved, the one who'd shared his dreams under the stars. "You're not going anywhere," Ezra said. "We're in this together." The hours dragged on, each minute a test of nerves. Ezra checked the alarms, the locks, the emergency fund they'd scraped together, 20,000 now. Still not enough. He clutched the burner phone Sarah had given him, waiting for her call. If the FBI moved fast enough, they could end this. If not, at dusk, 2 SUVs pulled up, their engines growling. Derek stepped out, flanked by 3 men, their faces hard. Ezra's heart pounded as he signaled the residents to stay back. He and Caleb stepped onto the porch, the air electric with tension. "You got my money?" Derek asked, his voice cold. 20 grand, Ezra said, holding up the envelope. "And evidence. We sent it to the feds. Everything Caleb knows about your operation." Derek's smile vanished. "You're bluffing." "Try me," Ezra said, his voice steel. "You touch this place, and you're done." One of Derek's men stepped forward, a gun glinting at his hip. Ezra's blood ran cold, but he held his ground. Caleb moved closer, his shoulder brushing Ezra's, a silent promise of solidarity. Before Derek could respond, sirens wailed in the distance. His eyes widened, and he cursed under his breath. "You'll regret this," he snarled, but he signaled his men to retreat. The SUVs sped off, leaving dust and silence in their wake. Ezra's knees buckled, relief flooding him. Sarah's call came moments later. The FBI had the evidence, and Derek was now their problem. The sanctuary was safe, at least for now. That night, the residents celebrated, their laughter echoing through the house. Caleb sat quietly, his eyes on Ezra. "I don't deserve this," he said. "You saved me." Ezra shook his head. "You saved yourself. You stayed. You fought." Caleb's tears fell, and for the first time in years, Ezra hugged him, the weight of their past lifting just a fraction. The sanctuary had done what it was built for. It had given an outcast a home, even one who'd once turned his back. As the fire crackled, Ezra looked around at his family: Maya, Riley, Leo, and now Caleb. They were broken, flawed, but together, they were unbreakable. The sanctuary wasn't just a place. It was a promise, one Ezra would keep no matter what came next. Months later, Caleb stayed, his hands calloused from work, his heart lighter. He and Ezra rebuilt their bond. Not perfect, but real. The sanctuary grew, its doors open to anyone who needed it. And on the porch, under the stars, Ezra carved a new sign, a haven for all. It was a reminder, a vow, that no one, not even a brother who'd lost his way, would ever be turned away.